Hi, Rice here. Today we're going to take a look at how to build a pie graph in Google Sheets. So if you take a look, I've already got a Google Sheets opened up and I titled it Pie Graph Example. And then I started to fill in some info here in my table. So I put in titles like mass and percent, and then I put in a bunch of different things that I measured in the lab. And this is a pretty good start for how you'd make a pie graph to insert into a lab report. So what I've got going on here is I have a mixture that I separated out into parts. Here's the mass of my entire mixture, and then here are the masses of the different components of that I measured in the lab. There's a few things that I want to know. One of the things that I want to know is the error, which would be how much less is my whole group of things compared to the entire mix. So if I wanted to know that, I'd need to add up the mass I have of aluminum, iron, sand, and salt, and then subtract away that from the whole mix. And I want to make sure that I specify that this is the mass in grams, so I'm going to put the unit up at the top, and then let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so now we know that all these are grams, and to find the error, I'm going to need to know what is the sum of all of these, so I can type in this expression, equals sum, and then highlight those, make sure I have the parentheses, and then hit enter. Turns out that the mass of all of those is 23.9. Now my error is not 23.9. That's the mass of all these put together. Instead, I want to know how much of a difference is there between 25.3 and 23.9. So I'm actually going to change this to say I want to do this cell up here minus the sum of those. So if I do that, the error is 1.4. That means that when I take these four parts that I got in the lab and add them up, their mass was 1.4 grams than the mass that I started with, which means that I spilled a fair amount of this material or lost it in the lab somehow. But that's, that's representative of what many people who actually did the lab ended up with. So this is one calculated value that's important for me to have. Other things that I could do is calculate the percentages. Now this first percentage is relatively easy. It's 100% of the lab, and you can see it tried to fill in the number that I just typed in. I want it to be a percentage, and you can see it jumped to 1,000%. I don't actually want that. I want 100%, and so I can say this right here. Now I want all of these to be percentages, and I want maybe just one decimal point, so I click this button. Now if I want to know the percentage of aluminum, I need to take that amount of aluminum and divide it by this whole mix. And I want it to always stay on that whole mix, so I'm going to hit F4, which puts in a $ before the B and the 2, which locks it in so it's always looking at 25.3. I hit enter, and this pops up. Now it gave me 30.8%. That's the percentage of my mixture that was aluminum, which is great. It's good to know. If I have this cell filled in and I've got the blue box, if I hover my cursor over, it turns to a black cross. And then I drag that down. Now I have percentages for all of these different materials. And you can see that it maps the orange part over to the numerator, over to that material, but it leaves the purple denominator up on the whole mixture. So that's useful. But what I really want from this is a pie graph. And I want a pie graph that tells me what the parts are and what the percentages are. So I'm going to highlight those. I click and drag, I hold control, and I can click and drag over these. That's nice and easy. Then I'm going to say insert a chart. And the chart that I'm going to insert here is this. I've got pie chart is what I'm going for, and it looks like everything just worked. Great. So you can see the pie chart's all filled in. It's there ready to go. And you can see that it labeled all the different sections, and this looks nice. If I wanted to, I could take this whole thing and I could copy this over. I could post this into, if I do Control C, now I'd be ready to paste this into any sort of a Google Doc that I have open. Like here's an example lab report. I could just plop it in there and hit Control V. I can paste it in link to the spreadsheet, or I can paste it unlinked. Let's just do that so it doesn't change. Here's my graph. There it is. That's it. And so that's it for making a graph and putting it in